Hello. In human resource management or some other labor economics subjects, sometimes students are asked to differentiate between salary and piece rate. It's not a difficult question, but you have to ensure that you fully understand and respond to it effectively in the exam. So here are some of the differences you can bear in mind. Remember, salary is usually paid on monthly basis, depending on which country you are in. So take, for example, a police officer who works for the Metropolitan Police in London. They are likely to be paid a salary, which means they have to work for about 30 days or maybe 22 days. And then after that, their employer will pay them a lump sum salary. This salary would be X amount of money minus tax and so forth. But in terms of piece wage rate, some textbooks call it piece rate, other textbooks call it piece wage rate. The piece rate is about paying people based on how many units they've made. So the best example I can think of is, think of the brick maker. Someone who is making bricks for building purposes, or someone who is making tables in a factory. The employer is likely to pay them based on how many units they have made. So if they have made 2 units, they will be paid for those 2 units only. They're not going to be paid monthly. The other way to look at it is, if this individual is unable to come to work and therefore they haven't produced anything, productivity is 0, then they don't get paid any salary. So if you were to ask, if you were asked to provide one disadvantage of piece wage rate or piece rate, the disadvantage is that it doesn't take into account illnesses, for example. It doesn't take into account disability. It doesn't take into account people who are not able to work very hard compared to the rest of the team. So here are your differences to what we call a salary and a piece rate. I'm going to summarize once more. Salary is paid to people who normally work for the government, or in some organizations where it's very difficult to account for the productivity of the person. So teachers, for example, you're not likely to be paying a teacher a piece rate. How are you going to work out that? If you pay a teacher a piece rate, then you're going to pay them based on how many students they have in their class. But you're going to have a problem with that. If you pay them based on how many students they have in their class, then all the teachers will try as much as possible to be favoring students so that they get more students coming into their class. So you have a problem with that. Or think of a doctor in a hospital. If you're going to pay the doctor based on how many operations that they have carried out, are you going to base it on successful operations, or are you going to base it on just operations? Whichever way you look at it, then you're going to have an imminent problem, such that if the doctor believes they're going to be paid more if they carry out more operations, then they will speed through the operation. And we know what can go wrong if the doctors don't take their time and they speed through the surgical operation. That can be not very desirable, or it's going to bring up some consequences that are not desirable. So if you are an employer and you want to decide what is the best to apply, my answer to you would be, it really depends on what is being produced or what kind of service is being offered. Again, if you work in an industry or in a firm where it's very easy to quantify or to identify the contribution of individuals in unit form, then the best method would be to use the piece rate. However, if you work in an industry where it's almost impossible to determine the exact discrete contribution of the individual, then the best method would be a salary. I hope I've made this clear, but if I haven't, let me know and I'll be able to explain this further. Thank you.